Screonk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen 5 Godzilla movies.
And we are talking about the third ever Godzilla movie. The first time Godzilla was in color, the first big shift in tone for the Showa era, the first time Godzilla was pitted against a pre-existing kaiju, and I believe to date, the most attended Godzilla movie that Japan produced ever, the very popular King Kong versus Godzilla, also known as Kingu Kongu Tai Gojira in Japanese, and no other weird English titles beyond that, which is nice because you could never improve on King Kong versus Godzilla.
It is very straightforward. I will curse the current like Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla X Kong in the zeitgeist because you cannot search King Kong versus Godzilla without other qualifiers. Without getting very modern stuff.
It's annoying because it's specifically a different title. Yeah. Godzilla versus Kong and King Kong versus Godzilla. 2 distinct titles. Yeah. It's like similar words, but
Google
the order's
should be able to
figure
different. It out.
Google should be able to figure it out. Yeah, it probably is some sponsorship bullshit. Like they probably whoever Legendary probably pays the money to make sure that the new movie gets the top spot. This is the one, however, that was released in Japan on August 11th, 1962. So it's not the one you saw a couple of years ago. This movie reunited the original creative team of the first Godzilla movie, directed by Ishirō Honda, produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, special effects by Eiji Tsubaraya, and score by Akira Ifukube. The only major new guy in the sort of major collection of main creators was the screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa. We'll probably maybe talk about him and his experiences maybe a little bit more for the next movie we're doing, because he actually wrote the solo Mothra movie right before he did this, but he has experience in lots of other Toku projects before and after, including working with Godzilla and Ishiro Honda a lot. So makes sense to be part of this this collection. He also worked very extensively in television and pop music before this movie, which I think makes a lot of sense when you know the setting of this movie and a lot of the themes of it. But Doug, overall thoughts on King Kong versus Godzilla?
I feel like to have this discussion, I have to like start with 3 things. There's like 3 things I think will sort of color at least my contributions to this conversation. One, I watched King Kong 33 before this, which in some ways was a really great idea, and in other ways was a really bad idea. I'll talk about why.
Sure.
2, you described this movie as fun as shit. And I feel like I will co-sign that for maybe like a third to a half of this movie.
Okay.
And the third thing is we've reached a pivotal moment in Screonk and my life where we are treading for the first time into like the silly zone of Godzilla. So everyone's going to get to witness here me like emerging from a cocoon into sort of like a new world. And it might be a little painful, but ultimately it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think that this movie is interesting because I do think that it is sort of like, even though it's very popular and beloved for being King Kong fights Godzilla, obviously that's going to be,
and that shit is fun as shit.
Yeah, makes sense. I do think in a lot of ways, I think maybe I feel like it's surprising to me sometimes when all the stuff that I read about this movie, it feels surprising that it's not talked about more as like a transition movie, because because it is obviously, but I think in that it is a weird middle ground between trying to be kind of smart and embracing the silliness. And I think it like succeeds in some ways and fails in other ways. I think this is like a very like flawed movie ultimately. But it's very, very fascinating for all the different things and different directions it's trying to do.
Absolutely. There is nothing about this movie I have like meh feelings about. All feelings strong, right? Right. And I'm so glad you said the transition, like it itself is a transition movie, because I do think that it wasn't, you didn't give me any information about this movie going in. You didn't tell me this was a transition into silly. You didn't tell me that it was transitional at all or that it was serious or whatever. You didn't give me any heads up.
Yeah, I didn't give you any content warnings about the brown face either.
It is. I watched, not that, well, we'll talk about King Kong.
Oh, well.
It's very different. They're different things. Yeah.
That's the whole conversation.
But it was interesting. And I'm just going to be like fully truthful about my journey watching this movie. It wasn't clear to me because it exists sort of like that transition exists within the movie itself. It's almost
it kind of does, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I don't think I realized that we had gotten into this territory until pretty well into the movie. Mm-hmm. And then I just was feeling this weird discord, especially because it was after all the Faroe Island wildly racist shit. And so I was I think in the wrong headspace, and I was I need to stop and I need to process. And I need to come back with the right mindset. So I did actually watch this in two settings, but I overlapped a lot of it so that I would go. So I went back to watch certain things with the new mindset. So it was an interesting sort of thing to sort of hit me. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't really expecting it, even though if someone had really pushed, I probably could have guessed that King Kong versus Godzilla is the right place to start injecting some of the lightheartedness and sort of I don't want to keep saying silly because I feel like people will think that I'm deriding it for that, and I'm not. But there's a lightheartedness to it, and there's sort of a high energy that is not necessarily meant to be thought-provoking or thoughtful. It's just pure fun. Look at these two guys going at it, you know?
Yeah, intentionally all ages, family friendly.
Yeah.
Kids can watch it and not be horrified by the death and destruction they're witnessing, and it probably is surprising for you that that it just happened so kind of abruptly in the third movie ever.
Genuinely surprised.
Yeah.
I was really shocked. And I know that this was 7 years? 7 years
after Godzilla raids again.
The previous, and I'm sure you'll talk about that. But yeah, I was really surprised. I was about as surprised that this sort of shift in tone happened this quickly as I was Anguirus appearing in the second movie as a monster versus monster situation, So the franchise is kind of transforming very quickly, way quicker than I would have thought, knowing how many there are. But it's cool to see. And to assure everybody, the silly stuff is my favorite stuff. Let's be real.
Well, and it's transforming quickly in the context of the number of movies that it is.
Yeah.
But if you consider, it was Godzilla comes out in 54, they quickly churn out Raids again in 55, and then it basically is put on ice for almost an entire decade. Mm-hmm. It's a very long time before this movie comes out.
Oh, totally. And we talked about that even with Raids Again. It was such a short period of time, but they weren't making this expecting to make a bazillion movies. I'm examining it from big picture, which is a stupid way to kind of examine it for that reason, right? For the progression and speed of it. But yeah, absolutely. Even just the literal time in between. It was. Did you say it was on ice? Did you say that, or did I just?
No, I said that and it didn't even, pun was not even intended.
I went right past it and it just hit me.
But I mean, I went right past it too. I didn't even realize that I made that pun. I'm so glad you caught that because I would have been really mad listening back and being that was actually pretty fucking brilliant of me and I didn't even catch that I did it. Total accident. I'm just that great.
But yeah, it's fascinating. I think in most ways I'm glad that we dipped into some other eras first, because I think it was nice to sort of get a big picture of one side or one particular tone that Godzilla can be before completely shifting into a different tone. Tone.
Well, yeah, I think if you really were marathoning these right back to back to back, you go from Raids Again to this. I think it is an even more abrupt shift than checking in with Godzilla 2000, which is head empty fun action movie. You can
but I think sincerely so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's an earnest, fun sci-fi action movie. I don't think it is. I wouldn't call anything in that particularly silly.
Yeah. No. Sure. Yeah. I mean, this movie, it's very interesting. I think context for it is helpful as usual. The production, I have so many more notes for this movie than I think I had for like any other one other than the first one. I'll try to, I want to zoom through some of it because some is more interesting than other stuff, but it's like the story behind this movie I think is really bizarre, but it then also I think does make some sense at the same time. It did originally it started with one of the OGs who worked on the 1933 King Kong, Willis O'Brien. He was the like very prolific chief animator, did a lot of like all the innovative stop motion effects of King Kong, as well as like The Lost World and Mighty Joe Young, like very prolific guy. I think he sort of kind of infamously like had a lot of projects that would just fall through in his career. There's a quote from one of the books I was reading that I think it was the David Kalat book that I'll cite in the show notes. But there's like a quote in there from Ray Harryhausen saying like how he survived all these disappointments, I'll never know. Like that was just like what he was known for. Yeah. And this actually weirdly ends up being a disappointment for him because he had been pitching King Kong meets Frankenstein around 1960, which is this idea he had about King Kong fighting a new giant Frankenstein monster that would be composed of a bunch of different animal parts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was being pitched around. RKO Pictures owned King Kong, but at that point they were more of like a distributor than a production studio. So they were like, we can't make this movie, like even though we own King Kong. So here's this producer, John Beck. We're gonna have this guy help pitch your movie idea to other studios and see what we can do. There's a whole long history of like plots changing and titles changing and ideas changing and stuff. But like the long and short of it is that like studios didn't want it because doing the stop motion, which is what they'd want to do because Willis O'Brien's a stop motion guy. It's just too expensive. And especially in 1960, it's like, why are we doing stop motion stuff? We're not going to do that. So it's, yeah. So it's really challenging to get it made. But what happens is that this producer, John Beck, who you see his name, did you watch the English version?
No, I watched the Japanese version, but John Beck does stand out to me because I do think I saw that he is the producer of the English version, right?
Yeah. Yeah. His name is plastered all over the English version. We'll have a whole conversation about the English version. There's some fun stuff. I'm
so curious.
Yeah, but he basically just takes it behind O'Brien's back to Toho. Because Toho was, I think, like their interest was piqued by the idea of doing a King Kong movie because they were celebrating their 30th anniversary, which like you see that banner at the beginning of the movie that it's Toho's 30th anniversary, and King Kong is like. He's a known character worldwide, right? Like that was part of the inception of Godzilla, right? Originally was King Kong, like, emerging in popularity, or resurging in popularity.
And also almost 30 years old at that point.
Right. So like, it totally makes sense to be like, yeah, we should absolutely do this. And of course, Tomoyuki Tanaka, who's like, Godzilla's like biggest number one supporter, like number one dad, always trying to get his son out there, is sort of like, we should do this, but we should put Godzilla in it. Yeah. So what better way to celebrate our 30th anniversary than having our big monster fight, big monster of Japan fighting the big monster of America? It makes total sense. So Beck did that behind O'Brien's back. O'Brien actually tried to sue Beck for stealing the idea because he's not credited at all on the movie we end up seeing, but he didn't have enough money, and then he ends up actually dying a few months after the movie debuts.
Oh my gosh.
And his wife attributes his death to the whole ordeal, stressing him out to his death. So
John Beck,
kind of a dark background of it. And I mean, honestly, like a lot of the American reaction to this movie being made at all, like Marion C. Cooper, one of the co-directors of the 33 King Kong movie, hated the idea. It's like, you're putting a guy in a gorilla suit. This sucks. This blows. So
I'm not surprised that's how they reacted to it, honestly. One of the reasons that I say watching King Kong 33 right before this, like there's two columns, right? There's like, damn, this was a great idea, I'm so glad I did that. And then there's the other column, which is like, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that. One of the things in the really wish I hadn't done that is like, you watch King Kong 33 and what they pull off is like still awe-inspiring. It's
incredible.
It's like, it's the fact that it happened 30 years before the movie we're talking about right now, and it still blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
I get why they would be like, what are you doing? What are you doing with our property?
It's an incredible movie, and it does feel, and it's particularly because of its special effects. And you know, a lot of the kind of like the darkness and the sort of sympathy and empathy you have towards Kong in that movie. And then this movie, it's like a silly comedic like wrestling match with a dude in a gorilla suit. Like, I get why you would think that that's bullshit. Like, I totally understand. I have a blast watching it, but I understand why you have that view.
Both things can be, you can understand both things. Both things can be true.
Yeah. And regardless of any of that, like, Tsubaraya is like, fuck yes, this is my dream, man.
Oh,
like,
sure.
he was so excited to do this, because I think we even talked about it, you know, one of our first episodes, that like he was very inspired by the special effects of the original King Kong to do what he did to just to invent tokusatsu as a medium, right? So it's kind of like the holy grail of the kaiju world to be able to do King Kong anything. And I think Toho, because it was their 30th anniversary, they were like totally a proponent for like doing go for broke in terms of the spectacle. Like, they were willing to pay for the rights for King Kong, which would have been pretty expensive. That's how you get a movie, like, because it's, you know, you are getting characters from two completely different studios. Like, what is that ever going to happen now? You know, like that's like a Marvel DC movie happening, right? Like, if you are a lover of Kong and get to make this, it's got to be like your dream.
You can tell too. Like, you can tell that they love King Kong in this movie. I think regardless of how you feel about their version of King Kong, I don't think you can walk away from this movie not seeing how much love they have for King Kong.
Yeah. The other side of it is that obviously this movie is like a lot more comedic and kid friendly. And the thing is, I think that also kind of has to do with the 30th anniversary thing, because it's like, if we're trying to celebrate the anniversary of the studio, we want this to be as accessible as possible. So we should make it appeal to a wider audience, make it more kid friendly, so more families can come see this fun monster movie. And also, like, this is something I wasn't really aware of until I was reading about it. But I mean, we in America know Toho for like being the Godzilla studio. But at the time, Toho was mostly making like comedies. Like, the Godzilla thing was kind of an outlier. So it's like, we do kind of want to play it a little bit safe for this movie. If we're spending a lot of money on it, we want to make sure it's successful. We know how to make comedies, so we should make this more of a comedy.
Well, and I mean, celebrating a 30th anniversary, like, I don't know that anyone's top idea is like, should we have more ruminations on nuclear war and like the effects of superpowers destroying countries in their, you know, wake? Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that there's kind of a split here too within the people working on the movie, because Tsubaraya is like all for like, okay, we'll make them more anthropomorphic. We're going to like model them after wrestlers. Like, it's going to be fun to do that. Like, I'll talk a little bit about like when we talk about the individual characters and like actual Godzilla and Kong, because we can have very hefty conversations about how they're portrayed in this movie. But like, I think like Tsubaraya was very in favor of that. Ishirō Honda, like, probably not a surprise that like he was always very troubled by it. And there's this book that came out in 2017 called Ishirō Honda, A Life in Film from Godzilla to Kurosawa, that I was reading some excerpts from. And everything, all of his quotes in that book about this movie are really, really interesting. And I respect him a lot, because it's like, you know, he's like obviously working for Toho regularly, and I think he definitely feels a strong connection with Godzilla. The only reason he didn't direct Raids Again was just because he was already busy and they were moving so quickly. So like, I think that he's very attached and willing to direct a Godzilla movie again, but he was still sort of like weirded out about the idea of transforming Godzilla from quote a nuclear protest monster into an outsides Rikidozen, who was a famous like wrestler at the time, and literally engaging in comic wrestling antics.
It is weird. I think it makes perfect sense for him to feel that way. I think it is a weird thing to do, and I think you know, it ushers in like an era. I'm guessing, based on how you've talked about it, like an era of sort of lighthearted, fun, silly, kind of campy, like Godzilla, which I think, I mean, if it sucked, then Godzilla wouldn't still exist. You know what I mean? Like, people clearly enjoy it. But I do think it's weird. When these are the only 3 movies you have, you're like, yeah, that was kind of weird. He also was emerging from a cocoon into a new era, and it was painful.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think there's a lot of comments about him saying like, kind of felt like maybe they were going too far with a lot of early drafts of the script. All the notes are sort of like make it as funny as possible. And he says, to me, what happened was not acceptable. Personally, I didn't want to do it, but the company demanded it. When you have to do it, then you have to do it. I did the best I could with it. Mr. Tsubaraya did his best as well.
Those quotes are really interesting because I feel like that is there. Like not that you can know that. Like it's not like you can watch the movie and be like, oh, it tastes like they were dissatisfied. Like, but I do think there is, like I mentioned, there a sort of discord. I think you can feel it at points. I think that's part of what was weird to me watching it and coming to the realization, like mid movie where we were going. I think that's the feeling, right?
Yeah. And his view is just sort of like, I'm doing a job. He says, when you're a director, it's your film, so you still have to do your best. So I sucked it up and worked as hard as possible.
Honda.
But I think that I feel many different ways about it because I agree with him. Like he created something so beautiful originally that I think was so important to him and I think important for the world. Mm-hmm. And then in this movie, it's like, he's a character for children to like root for. Mm-hmm. And I think he says too, like, because he acts more human, because he's more anthropomorphized. I don't know if that's the word. Made more anthropomorphized. Anthropomorphized. Thank you. Because it's more like anthropomorphized. Like it does show off more that it's a dude in the suit. Like it becomes more obvious that it's a guy in a suit, which for me, latter Showa era Godzilla movies, like, he's obviously a guy in a suit, and that's kind of what I love about it. But when you're in this movie, when it's your first time sort of seeing that transition kind of almost out of nowhere, it is a little bit weird, and you do have to like adjust to it. And like I said, like Tsubaraya embraced it. And I think Honda, there's no interviews that I could find where he says anything bad about Tsubaraya. I think Tsubaraya is just sort of like, I'm a special effects guy. I'm having fucking fun with it. Honda, I think his issue was always with the studio pushing for this direction and then just sort of forcing him into a position where he just sort of like had to go with it. And really, I think the way that Honda was able to sort of work around it was by inserting this sort of commentary, like satirical bent about what's happening in Japanese society at the time with the way that media treats like these sort of publicity stunts. And
I think that, like, I think he does that, and I'm sure we'll get more into like the specifics of that, but I think he does that successfully enough that even though there is that like satire and there's a particular character especially that is goofy, and sort of the setup to how this all happens is like kind of funny. I'd say like very funny, but I still didn't think that it was, like it still felt very sincere despite being sort of satirical or being funny,
Yeah. So like that, I think the sort of television was a conversation happening in Japan at the time. There's a story that book about Honda references. And I don't know if Honda said that this was exactly his inspiration, but like the book draws those connections. So I'm just going to go by what the book did. But basically in earlier, like in 1962, earlier in that year, there was this wrestling match that had that Rikudozen, that famous Japanese wrestler, against a bunch of other challengers. And at what point one of the wrestlers bites another wrestler like on the forehead, opening this sort of like really bad bloody gash that's like really violent. And reportedly, supposedly, two elderly viewers like were so shocked by it that they collapsed and died.
Oh my God.
It sounds like one of those like fake stories. I don't know. Like it sounds like one of those like they saw the horror movie and it was so bad that they had a heart attack. But like whether that's a real thing that happened or not, this commentary on this sort of like the media was going so hard on doing the most outrageous stuff and the wildest like stunts to gather ratings that like it's actually like having this weird perverse impact on society watching it. And that's the same conversation that's been had a million times about any time there's any new type of media, right? So it makes sense, but like that's what was sort of happening at the time, was very specifically television, because that was still relatively new. And in Japan, I think that a lot of like commentators and researchers are sort of like feeling like that was having an actual direct negative impact on culture at the time. And so I think you see this, if you connect the dots, you then see in this movie, it's literally about like two big characters who are wrestling to the detriment of the world around them, you know? Kind of. I think the biggest flaw with the satire stuff is that it doesn't really end there. It doesn't like go that far, but I think that's the idea, you know?
That's I'm so glad that was like explicitly what the commentary was like on, from like directly from the creator, right? Like it's not just interpreting it or like a scenario that like kind of works or whatever. Like but like he doesn't get to fully carry it out because of the sort of latter half of the movie doesn't really allow for that to have the impact that it could or should have had, if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that like the more, I don't know, serious quote unquote version of the movie, like their actual wrestling match at the end would cause like wide scale destruction in Tokyo and kill people. And like they don't even make it to Tokyo. So
that honestly was sort of one of the things that hit me, like it kind of hit me delayed, but really hard, where I was like, wait a second, like almost no one was really in danger for their actual fight. Like there are people in danger throughout this movie, but not because those two are fighting. Yeah. Which like it was it's weird realization to have.
Yeah, and I think that was probably just Toho's doing of never letting that be a thing. That like, why would they let that happen for their fun movie? They don't want to show the actual devastation, because the point of this is supposed to be the fun attraction, which are things that characters in the movie up until the end are constantly commenting on the fun attraction and placing bets about who's going to win. And, and like the whole, we'll talk about it, but like the entire plot of the movie only happens because like a corporation that's sponsoring a TV network wants to like bring these two wants to have a new monster as a sponsor and then eventually bring him in to fight to get like good ratings, So like the ideas totally make sense. Yeah. Like this movie is about like the ultimate ratings grab, which is very funny because it ends up being a meta commentary on what the movie actually is in real life too. They also were sort of taking a page from Keizai Shosetsu, which are business novels that were like a popular sort of genre in the 50s and 60s in Japan that were specifically about spoofing ruthless Japanese business practices. So I think that's the whole pharmaceutical TV station stuff is sort of riffing on that, like the idea of like, why is a medicine company being involved in this at all? And, and when you know about like the history of television, like, you watch stuff from the 50s, it's like Colgate presents the Campbell's Soup Hour variety show, like corporate sponsorships, AKA corporations basically being in charge of the art, has been around for like the entire existence of all of Hollywood and especially television. So in this movie just sort of like more heavily highlights that in a very like comedic way of like, a fucking pharmaceutical company is what causes King Kong and Godzilla to fight for the TV ratings. It's like, you should just fucking making pills. What are you doing?
I mean, that's the absurd sort of funny setup that I was referencing. Like it's so ridiculous, but like it makes sense. Like you said, all the dots connect, but it's just such an absurd way for the meeting of these monsters to actually happen. There are some things I predicted that like are in the vague sort of realm of some things that happen in this movie, but in like under no circumstance could I have ever guessed the actual catalyst for these monsters meeting each other. Like it's just so ridiculous. And I love it. Yeah. I thought it was so clever.
I think that's great. Like, genuinely, like it's just that idea, and like the times when that really comes up deliberately and directly is like that's my favorite part of the movie, and I think kind of the best part of it. Because it is sort of like it feels honestly kind of modern in a way, right? Like because we're constantly inundated with stuff where it's like, well, clearly this is just like a corporate cash grab. Yeah, and this movie is clearly a corporate cash grab. And Honda's making a movie where it's like, what if characters are telling you, this is clearly a corporate cash grab. The characters are talking the same way you would. Mommy, I want to see Godzilla. Who do you think who's going to win, Kong or Godzilla? Oh, there's like a Godzilla restaurants are offering special like Godzilla tie-in meals and stuff. Like that's all like shit that happens in real life. And that's all exactly what they're saying in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, that is certainly part of my favorite movie. Anytime that stuff is really, really highlighted or thick, and then the sort of like end, just unabashed, fight of it all. I don't know that they are together my favorite thing.
I think,
but both of those things, like as their separate parts of what makes up this movie. You know, I love both of them.
Yeah, you know, and I think it was, I think it was just like literally just like an impossible task, right? Like I think Honda wanted to make a real movie, and Toho wanted to make a commercial for Toho characters, and there's no way to really make those not a little bit incongruous.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think like probably future movies find a better balance, but this one, it's sort of like, it truly is like artists clashing against the corporation. And like Honda, you know, I think truly in good faith was just working his job the best that he could as a creative under those specific guidelines. And I think turned out probably like, you know, probably the best movie he could under those circumstances. But I would have loved to see the alternate universe where he's doing this and actually like trying to
so bad.
I like it.
I want to see it so bad.
Like it doesn't even have to be like a serious dramatic movie, but
I don't think it
like
would have been
a satire, but going harder on the satire,
right? And
being able to do that. Like I think Honda could have made such a fucking fantastic. Like this movie is a banger in terms of being fun, but I think he could have made an absolute banger in terms of being like a piece of art, satirical art. You know,
I think the alternate version is the banger for me, but I had fun.
Sure. I think that's fair. And in any case, like this ends up being such a wildly successful movie that it's sort of like, okay, we can take Godzilla out of dormancy and just churn out movies like every year or two, and you know, continue down this path because it was so wildly successful.
And I imagine none of those are going to feel even remotely as weird as this one did, if not not weird at all. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it really is that sort of like tension that you can feel in the movie, whether you can put your finger on it or not, and that sort of transformation that this movie is, or that sort of pathway that this movie is. You know, the doors are open. Like no other movie has to carry that weight anymore. It can either be silly or it can be serious, and that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have many places to go. Do you want to talk about like the monsters? Do you want to talk about characters? Do you want to get the brown face stuff out of the way? Like what feels?
Well, the thing is, I don't want to end
a better place to go.
I don't want to end with the racism. So
yeah. Let's just get out of the way, because I mean that's the thing you just like literally can't avoid when you watch this movie, right? And I think what's weird, what's frustrating is if you haven't watched the movie, I guess, and you're listening to us, like. It's a King Kong movie. They go to the island that King Kong lives on. It's so part and parcel of so many King Kong stories that there's, you know, quote unquote savages that live on the island. And in this movie, you know, it's mostly Japanese actors in brown face makeup, which when you're watching the movie in HD, especially, oh boy, that makeup is so obvious and looks real bad. And like, it's so weird because, well, there's a couple of things. There's one, a Reddit post. So take it with the biggest grain of salt ever, was postulating, that was sort of like a result that wasn't the original plan. Cause it is an actual fact that like Toho paid a metric shit ton of money for the King Kong rights, and that kind of inflated the budget. And originally they were going to film the Faroe Island stuff in Sri Lanka, and then they couldn't because they didn't have money to do that, so they just had to film on a set. And I think that Reddit poster postulated, I don't know where they're getting their fucking information from, but they postulated that like if they were filming in Sri Lanka, they probably would have hired like actual natives of Sri Lanka to play those characters on that island, right? And then when they didn't have money to go there, they just hired Japanese actors and slapped a bunch of makeup on them.
Well, and the latter part of that latter sentence is the problem, because like King Kong 33, like it's so interesting comparing because King Kong versus Godzilla like explicitly kind of takes some of the beats and origin parts of Godzilla and like adapts it for this movie, or of King Kong, and adapts it for this movie, which is like fascinating to see. So unfortunately you get sort of like the 1-to-1 comparison many steps along the way. And like in King Kong 33, those were black actors. Like, yes, they they had to sort of be this savage society, this like uncivilized people. But at the very least, they were all actually black. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's funny's not the right word, but like it's interesting, unexpected maybe. King Kong, like it as it was presented and as it talks about itself is like a Beauty and the Beast story, but really the legacy of that movie and what that movie kind of has become is a story on, colonialism and white hubris and sort of the perspective of the horrible perspective of white people on black people, like at the time and as it persists. Like that's kind of what it actually represents, and that's kind of what it actually means, and sort of like I think gives it lasting value in sort of the history of storytelling and filmmaking and stuff.
Yeah.
This somehow like feels like worse. It's not. It's hard to compare, but I think because King Kong, it's like these more complicated things, right? It's sort of like complicated, systemic sort of things that you can watch that movie and be like, yeah, but they're black actors, or yeah, but like it's not about racism. This one, like you said, it's unavoidable. There's no way to walk away from this and not know that those are Japanese people painted brown, and they didn't have to do it. Like most of this movie takes place in like big cities. They literally could have just had a different, like it's just Japanese people not painted brown who are like your quote savages, like there's literally no reason they couldn't have done that.
Yeah. The sort of way that like King Kong stories are so like rooted in like kind of these really complicated racism conversations, I think it's really, it is very weird because it's like, I was reading up some old like NPR articles that have come out. One that came out when Skull Island came out, and then one that actually came out in 2005 when the Peter Jackson Kong movie was out. And like in both cases, it's very much like professors who've like studied like black horror and like, representation in film, just like literally asking the question of sort of like, is it possible to do a King Kong movie that doesn't have just a little bit of racism in it? Like, because I mean, and there's Robin Means Coleman is a professor at University of Michigan, had a really like wrote this book called Horror Noir: History of Black American Horror from 1890s to present, which sounds really interesting, and I want to read. I keep
meaning to read it. There's a series on Shudder, I believe, that is like maybe not an adaptation of it, but like a series sort of continuation. It's also literally just called Black Noir.
I had no idea. I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. The book Horror Noir is the one that she wrote.
Sorry, Horror Noir. I got the name wrong.
Yeah. But she was on one of the NPR interviews, and like, she was saying, you can draw a direct line from Birth of a Nation, which is about the black male threat to white women, and draw that line directly to King Kong in 1933, because that's a time when black men were regularly depicted as ape-like. And it's during the beginning of the Great Migration, when thousands and thousands of black people were leaving the South to move to the nation's biggest cities. As Means describes it, Kong in that 1933 film is a, quote, big black ape who is absolutely obsessed with whiteness, and particularly white women. And the movie shows that has to be cut down. And like, and that the sort of traditional story is like highlighting anxieties about like black male hypersexuality and stuff, all incredibly uncomfortable stuff. And so that means, you have this iconography of like King Kong holding a screaming lady in his hands that's like loaded. And like, I don't even think that I don't think it was ever intentional. Like the directors of the original King Kong movie have like specifically talked about like, that wasn't ever our idea. But I think it's one of those things where like, you can't escape the context in which you were living. And they maybe weren't intending to that, but either that was in the back of their minds, the back of someone's minds as they were making the movie, or that's how people were going to read it when they were watching
no
it,
matter
even
what.
If it's unintentional, no matter what.
Right.
And that's sort of so built in the DNA that it's like, then when you get to this movie, it's just sort of like, it almost isn't a surprise to me that even in Japan, they're going to pull some level of racism out of it,
Of course not. And well, one, if people didn't know that's the King Kong conversation, like there's your crash course, like inseparable at this point. But like, that's what's so interesting about it, I think, in how it might make somebody feel as you're like experiencing it, right? Because one of those things is so complicated and so kind of academic and so like entangled and so like it's so big. Like the conversations are still happening. They're never going to stop happening. And then with this one, it's like it's a very sort of momentary, short, sort of like in your face sort of thing. And the only sort of like comparison I can and sort of make is like trying to compare people who benefit from and are contributing to systemic racism but who are probably like not necessarily actively, directly doing racist things to people, versus somebody who, you know, maybe doesn't benefit as much, but walks right up to somebody and calls them a slur. You know what I mean? Like one of those things in the immediate feels worse, but then you think about it and you're like, I don't really know which one's worse. I just know one of them could have not happened immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And it's an inescapable part. I do think one of the other interesting things about this movie though, is that like the actual natives of the island are like the racist part. Unlike a lot of other like King Kong movies, Kong himself doesn't feel like a racist sort of allegory in this movie. I think because it's filtered through the Japanese lens, like he really is just sort of another kaiju who lives on an island and fights Godzilla. I feel like unless...
And I think that's why it feels less complicated. I feel like that's why it feels less like it's the DNA of the movie. Like it's like choices that they made that could have been avoided versus the creators of King Kong being like, we didn't mean to do that, and it just happening anyway, you know?
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think like how would it have become as complicated and as sort of like big of a conversation as an American movie there? You know, like the context is just completely different.
Yeah. And it's also the perils of watching a movie from 1962. So unfortunately, I wish I had done my due diligence on this one, but like in Japan too, specifically, like, you know, obviously the conversations about, you know, dark skin in Japan is very different than the conversations about that in America. There's still plenty of racism in Japan, to be clear.
But you also have to acknowledge this movie was then released in the United States a year later.
They didn't cut any of that shit out in the US cut. I can tell you that. It's all there. They don't cut a single thing out from there. So
cool. I mean, I don't know how they could. Like, I genuinely don't know how they possibly could.
It's so like important to the plot.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Yeah.
You would have no movie left if you cut out like half the movie you cut out.
I'm guessing they also couldn't do much about this, but the character of Kano, I'm assuming, is just also there, and that they don't change anything about that character in the English version, because I don't know how the translator, I don't know how you possibly could, but like
he's all the same.
It feels like one thing to sort of like paint people a color and be like, all right, act like this. Oh my gosh, the translator character, I was like, oh, this is so horrible. I just want him to be gone, especially because like that sort of energy or that sort of excitable character like isn't reliant on like making him black or brown. Like it's just like I've seen plenty of Japanese characters across all kinds of genres be that type of character. So she was just like, oh my goodness.
the language they're also speaking was a mix of Polynesian, Pidgin English, and backwards phrases too.
I was wondering about that because they just don't subtitle it. They don't say anything at all.
No. Yeah. It's like slightly better than gibberish because at least they're pulling for real languages, but it's still just like made up a fake language.
Yeah. But ultimately, like with the Faroe Island stuff, I'm like glad I watched King Kong for honestly that reason. Like I don't think I know I wasn't expecting for King Kong versus Godzilla to basically have the story of how King Kong gets to like a mainland country in the same way that King Kong 33 does. And like there are certain elements of it, the sort of hubris of it, or the sort of like careless like capitalist piece of it that carry over into this one. But like the actual literal events I'm just surprised by. I mean they don't get it one for one, and I think it's certainly not as deep, but like just that's what I mean when I say like it's clear they love that movie. Like they wanted to make their own version of these scenes. They wanted to make their own version of these sets. They wanted to like, you know, contribute to them and transform them, and you can see that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And like it makes even more sense how you get a satire of corporate like media in this movie out of the original King Kong, you know?
Absolutely.
Like,
I mean,
totally
that's the whole
sense.
thing. Like Denham in King Kong is this guy who's like basically lying to people about what they're actually going to do so that he can make more money. I mean, honestly, this guy Taco's almost like better in a way because he's at least not lying to anyone. Like he's straight up about what he wants to do. You know what I mean?
That's actually a really good point.
There's no deception whatsoever.
Yeah. It's
Denim
just like,
is a con man. This guy is just like a wacky dude who will tell you right to your face what he wants to do.
that's so, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, no, that's so true. He literally is like, I want a big publicity stunt for my TV show. I'm going to steal Kong and he's going to be on my TV show for a big publicity stunt.
He doesn't have to manipulate anybody to get there. He just like orders his employees to go and is like, we're going to do it.
Imagine working, I know this is in the weeds of the plot. Like, I imagine being like a cameraman or whatever for like a TV studio. And it's like, all right, you're going to go on an expedition to an island, to a mostly uncharted island to steal a giant monster. Like, what the hell?
Right.
It's so
like,
absurd.
why us?
I love how utterly absurd it is.
Yeah, the one guy has the right idea. The one guy who's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, why would
you shouldn't let anyone convince you to do that?
That's not literal. That's literally not your job. Like, not even like so beyond far above your pay grade.
Right.
It makes absolutely no sense.
I was like, you're already a very handsome man to look at, and you're sensible. Like, yes, follow that instinct. Be that guy. I like that guy.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I feel like we've. Like, it's such a complicated conversation, obviously, to have. I feel like we've gotten the good broad strokes of it. I'll link to all the stuff we were talking about in the show notes. Do your own reading about it. It's King Kong is just a thing that unfortunately has a lot of long-standing history with like racism stuff. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy the character and you can't, do non-racist stories with him, but I think you do have to acknowledge that is unfortunately just sort of a core part of its origins and history.
I think if you're going to be a responsible consumer and fan of King Kong, you have to acknowledge those things. And the two of us are never going to do that conversation justice. I mean, we're two white guys talking on a podcast, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There is more stuff on Faroe Island though worth talking about. And I don't know if this is going to be, I don't know how people would feel about this.
Okay.
I think I know how you would think I would feel about this. Okay. But I think I might surprise you.
Okay.
I hated the octopus stuff so much.
Oh boy. Okay. You know what? This is a great transition because my next thing that I want to talk about was all the different monsters. Yeah. And the octopus is one of the monsters in this movie. So we'll just start there and then go to our big ones after that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I am a little bit surprised.
Me too. Because when they introduce a giant octopus on the scene, I'm like, hell yeah, this is my shit.
Okay, yeah. Explain your feelings.
I just like, okay, my favorite part of the octopus stuff was when you actually have King Kong fighting this sort of like obviously fake octopus, right? But when you have the real octopus just sort of like crawling on land over these like sets, one, it's slow as hell. Two, it's really dark. It's hard to make things out, at least on the one I was watching. I was watching the Japanese one, which is not remastered and like has sort of like patchy quality.
To be fair, that one I want to when we at some point when it feels right. There's some interesting preservation conversations about that. But but
at least for the version I was watching, it's like dark and difficult to sort of make out a lot of it because it's just like a zoomed in shots of just like a tentacle, which like for an art piece in a museum, like I'd watch that all day. Are you kidding me? But didn't necessarily like kind of slowed momentum incredibly for what I was watching. And then 3, the sound was horrible and not in a way that I thought landed because it like the balance was so bizarre. I can't wait to watch this on the English version because some of the things we've talked about with previous movies, like the English version kind of has the opportunity to like make tweaks or sort of, I hate to use the word correct, but like can't think of a better word at the moment, like correct certain sound issues or like music things. At least again, in the version I was watching, like the music, if the music was at like 50%, the octopus sounds were at like 150%. And then any voices, like any screaming, any voices, anyone talking was at like 20%. And it just was like such a bizarre, like I wanted to like it. I wanted to be so excited about this octopus monster. And I was so mad to be like bored and grossed out and not in like a cool horror sci-fi way.
Yeah. I do think that the sound stuff was probably part of, I think that was more probably because of the copy that you were watching, because you watched the Criterion collection, like kind of the Japanese one that they have on their supplements.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I watched.
Yeah, and you know, it's a messy sort of cut that they have on there. And I do think that the US version, the slime sound effects aren't as pronounced, but a downside to the US version is that they just swap out almost all of the score of this movie for like kind of more generic American stuff.
That's a bummer, but also there are moments in the Japanese version where I'm like, I feel like you're doing Ifukube dirty by not featuring this music more.
I think that's fair. Know? Yeah. I would be curious of like, cause I have also, of the Japanese one, I've only seen what's on the Criterion collection that we have. There is like a 4K scan that Toho did do, but didn't give to Criterion. I think I guess I can just go over this real quick now. Yeah. I mean, there's just been a long history of the preservation stuff with this movie that's like interesting. I won't go into all of it. You can read all about it, but like the long and short of it is that like way back in the 70s, like Honda himself had to re-edit the movie for like a festival that it was part of.
Oh, I did encounter this because I was wondering why the version I was watching kept switching back and forth between like really high quality video and really not high quality video.
Yeah, like you'd have to cut it down, and unfortunately, as a cost cutting measure, they just like directly edited the original camera negative.
That's so horrifying.
Which it's horrifying, but like back then they weren't thinking we were going to be doing like HD upscales in like 50 years, right? So like why would you? Yeah, but that meant that there was like just a bunch of the original print missing. So if you ever want to do restorations, you literally wouldn't have access to it. Yeah. So like there's been multiple releases where people tried to cobble stuff together. Some stuff has gone missing again. Stuff's been found again, et cetera, et cetera. What we have on the Criterion set was like one cut of it that combined like HD footage that I think they pulled from like the US version that did have it in higher quality with like whatever they could find from the Japanese version. So it's like a mix of like upscaled HD stuff and just like really horrendously awful, like murky, like worse than DVD quality footage. And that's all Criterion Collection was allowed to have. Like I said, Toho did like, I think they at one point did find like a print of it that they didn't know existed and were able to do like a 4K scan of it. But I think what happened was that they like showed it in theaters, and then the Criterion Collection was supposed to come out in like 2019. And I think Toho was like, we don't want to like put our 4K scan to Criterion. We want to be able to sell that in our country on our own, because if we sell it to Criterion, people in Japan are just going to import the Criterion set.
Totally.
Because I think eventually the Japanese 4K cut doesn't come out until like a couple of years after the Criterion set does. So they just didn't give Criterion that cut. So that's all that Criterion had access to, which is also why on the Criterion set, like that's why it's a supplement, because they couldn't in good faith release it as part of the Blu-ray HD collection. So the only like sort of remastered HD movie that you have on the disc is just the US version.
Yeah. For folks who frequent libraries, you'll appreciate my library journey. The library that does have these movies near me has them all split into separate discs. So if you're looking for a particular movie, you get just that disc. You don't get the whole Criterion Collection, which makes sense for circulation. But because this is on the supplemental disc, it doesn't show up as that, and it's not really obvious the way that it's cataloged. So I remember texting Derek and being like, I think maybe I have the movie, but I'm not really sure until I get it. Because it just wasn't obvious based on how they had cataloged it that there was a whole movie on there, and that's what it was.
Forgot that the Criterion, because it's not advertised, because I think that they know that it's not the best edition. It's not like up to par for what Criterion normally releases, so like it's not like very clear unless you're like looking into it. I legit like forgot that was ever on it. I never had seen the Japanese version. I'd only ever seen the US version because I was just sort of like, I'll have to search it out, at some point. And then it's like, and then you were telling me like, it's on the supplement disc, and I checked and I'm like, oh my god, I've literally had the Japanese version this entire time and never sat down and watched it because I didn't realize I literally own it.
Well, I'll be curious when you eventually watch it to like get your thoughts on any sort of like. Or have you watched it since? Oh, okay.
I did since.
Great.
I absolutely watched it for this podcast because it is a very different and much better movie than the US version.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I can't wait to get to that section, but we must wait to get to that section. Well, I do hope that either the English version or the 4K version or whatever version improves upon that octopus stuff, because it's such a cool idea. You know what? Do it again. Do it again in a different movie. Do it, figure it out. I mean, ideally do it with either practical or CGI. It's probably better for the octopus.
Do you want to hear the horrible backstory of this?
I looked this up. I didn't look this specific thing up, but I looked up how long can an octopus survive out of water, and it's like 30 to 60 minutes. And I have to imagine they kept this thing out longer than that. Maybe not all at once.
Maybe.
But
I mean, they use multiple ones is the thing. So they were able to cycle through it.
Me.
3 of them did get released. So that's fine. The 4th one, Tsubaraya cooked and ate it after it was done.
Okay. It didn't die on set and get thrown away.
It didn't,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. It didn't go to waste.
Yeah.
It didn't go to waste,
Yeah.
But I think it was like, I was reading that there was this interview with Teruyushi Nakano, who was like he was this assistant special effects director on this movie. I think he was also the one who did the effects on 1984, if I'm remembering correctly. So he was, there's an interview that I found with him that was very funny, and he was just like, Tsubaraya just really fucking wanted to include an octopus. Like, I think that it just was in his head.
Oh, that reads. That absolutely reads.
Like, I think that there was one point where, like, maybe King Kong, like, the octopus was going to be, like, a main, like, in the early, development stages before they landed on Godzilla, like, it would be King Kong versus a giant octopus,
Hell
right?
Yeah.
And then when they, got rid of that idea, Tsubaraya was just sort of like, yeah, but I really want to do an octopus. And Nakano says, I love this quote. He says, and I quote, "For some reason, Mr. Tsubaraya couldn't get it out of his head to use this big octopus. He kept thinking how they could put the octopus in the movie. He was more diligent in filming the octopus than he was with King Kong and Godzilla."
I was so worried to say I hated the octopus stuff, and I feel so much better about saying I hated the octopus stuff. I respect Tsubaraya a lot, but bro, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't pay off, I don't think.
Yeah. I like the anytime they use the rubber one that like jumps on Kong's face. I think
like
really
that
fun.
significantly more.
And they did have some there's a couple of times where they really did have like full-sized like tentacle props too. I thought that those looked really cool.
Yeah.
And there's some stop motion that like didn't really look that great, but I love whatever stop motion is used regardless.
Sure.
So it can look like ass and I'm still gonna fucking love it.
Yeah.
So but yeah, no, I do agree that the slime sound effects I think take you out of it. Even in the US version where it's like toned down, it's still like it just gets to be a lot. And I think that there's a reason why a lot of like kaiju monsters that really like stick and become very popular. I think there's a reason why they are slightly more anthropomorphized and aren't just a big animal, but big. Yeah. Like, and I think because like, it's because it's literally an octopus. It doesn't have any like personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to say that octopuses aren't smart, because I know that they are, but discernible personality on screen.
Not happening.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's just so it does make it look like you're just kind of watching a nature video with a bunch of like relatively poorly composited people screaming about it and a lot of slime noises,
Phew.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I like that it's in it because I do think the idea of Kong fighting an octopus is really fun.
Yeah.
And I do think like when I first watched it, I was like, I had no fucking idea that this was going to be in this movie, and this is wild to see just a giant fucking octopus.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the experimentation of like, again, they had just invented the kaiju genre, like, within the last decade, and are still experimenting. Like, what if we could just do this and have just giant animals? And I don't think they really see them. We never really see them do it again, because I think it is just hard to do it and make it look good,
And like, I mean, of all the animals they could have chosen to just literally put on set and be like, it's giant, they might have nailed it in one. Because like, what are you going to put like a lizard, just like an actual lizard on set and be like, look how huge it is. Like against Godzilla, I don't think so. It's like too similar, like put a cat on there. Like, I don't know. I think the octopus actually like, the idea of it is very good. I appreciate the experimentation. But he just maybe could have let it go. Or cut away from the noises even once over the course of that sequence. It just feels completely separate from everything. All right, I'm done with the octopus.
Okay. I never would have ever thought I'd heard you say I'm done with the octopus.
I know.
Here we are.
And probably done with Faroe Island. I mean, those are kind of the two big things that I think are probably worth noting there, unless there's something I'm forgetting.
the actual like song that becomes Kong's theme.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is such a fucking banger. That's such a good piece of music.
Yeah, it's good.
That is the one piece of music that does get carried over into the US version, because there's no way, because I mean people literally like dance and chant to it. Like how would you not have that?
Yeah.
And it's so good. I love that piece of music so much.
It's good, and I like that it's plot relevant. Not that it needs to be, but I just appreciate it even more.
It makes it even better.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about our boy Godzilla. What do you think of this Godzilla suit? Well, I'll tell you first, the name is King Goji, which is such an easy, beautiful, easy to remember name.
Yep.
And it's Nakajima, like the OG, playing him again. Even though this is a very different like performance for this Godzilla, obviously, it's still the same guy doing it. Yeah. So what do you think of this Godzilla?
I told Derek that I had started to make a document of like the cast, so I could kind of keep track of the archetypes of certain characters and like what carried over. I made another tab on that same document that is now just the suits that I have seen, because eventually I'm going to start forgetting, things about them. And what's interesting about having done that is I feel like when I was only seeing them completely out of context, which maybe folks wanted, but was difficult, when I was seeing them totally out of context, like I don't know that the impressions were necessarily right. It's interesting to see this one and be like, this is like maybe okay, but then actually look at the other 4 that I've seen and be like, actually this one kind of rips. Like it's pretty good. Like silhouette wise is really good. Like given how it moves, which isn't always super great, like for a suit, like it does look pretty good. The only thing, honestly, well, there's maybe 2 things I don't really like about it, but the only things I don't really love about it, the head shape is weird because of the eye placement. And I feel like the head of this suit was specifically made to feature Godzilla in profile.
Yep.
Because
I think so.
Because it looks amazing in profile. It looks wretched head on.
It's really it's weird, right? Like it's almost like it feels like a weird like optical illusion. Like it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't look like the same thing.
Yeah. I've always felt the same way too. This is a very popular Godzilla designs. Like it's one of the most popular ones. Like you're going to see this in a lot of art. The podcast art, like the head of the podcast art I based it on this Godzilla because it looks so incredibly good in profile. I have like a shirt with this one. A lot of, like I said, a lot of art that you'll see like will be based on this design because it's such a distinct one. Like it looks very Godzilla, but it doesn't like feel, but it also like, it feels like a good representation of like Godzilla in general. Right. But always in profile. Like, when you look at it head on, he looks really goofy head on. And it's so strange.
It somehow goes from like having a whole ass walking lizard monster neck to having like no neck. And like there's no top of the head. It's like a Goomba shape. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it kind of is.
But in profile it looks amazing. I do like the silhouette. It's much more similar to the ones that I've liked so far. Than I thought. And what's interesting is I think seeing this head, especially when it's at like the wrong angles, makes me appreciate the Miragoji one so much more for like getting that right. Because they both kind of have a flatter head with like a wider mouth, almost like more frog-like proportion than like lizard or crocodile type proportions. And I think at first I wasn't like super into that, but I actually kind of freaking love the Millennium one now that I've seen like a couple ways to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a good suit.
It's really good. Yeah. And, this is the first one that doesn't have like ears anymore, which I always love when Godzilla has ears, but he's missing ears. He doesn't have fangs, which I think they were probably just doing to sort of soften the features because they want this to be more kid friendly, which I think makes sense. He has 3 toes instead of 4, which I think the first time
it's important.
This one. So yeah. So, and I think that like a lot of those things carry over for pretty much the whole Showa era until it's rebooted.
I also realized I said that there were 2 things I didn't like about it and I only said 1. The other thing I think is not the fault of the suit. I think it's how they had to move in this. And it is just that like it doesn't feel full. Like when he's moving, like you can see how much empty room is in there.
Yeah.
And that's like a hard thing to do. And I think like when he's like flapping his arms, like I think you can hear the suit.
I think that's a sound effect that they added for some reason. It's like because that was like a thing.
That's so much worse.
I think, yeah. Like you're talking about the weird.
I thought it was like rubber like crease
I could be wrong.
sound effect. I don't know.
I could be wrong. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I thought that it was a weird little because he's supposed to be clapping. Like what it is supposed to be is that
Can he even make contact between his hands?
Well, I don't think he can fit it, but it's like it was like Nakajima was specifically imitating like gestures that professional wrestlers were making during the time. So I think it was probably a thing where like if you were watching it in the 60s, you would recognize that as sort of like this sort of wrestling clap that they would do. But it doesn't read as well on screen because he has little arms that don't really connect.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel I never
Which is why I think that it
would
was
have read
supposed
that
to
as
be
clapping. I thought it was just meant to be like
I don't know
like,
if the clapping is it's not like literally it's not clapping like you're in an applause. It's like I don't even know if that's right. Maybe there's a better like or a Japanese word for it or something.
Sure.
That's how I've seen other people call that gesture, but it's like just that act of like excitedly moving your hands together is almost like after you've like made a move like that's just a thing. And so you know, I thought the sound effect was like added there for the connection, but I don't know.
Because I remember it most prominently when they're sort of like facing off and doing their sort of this. I thought was so fucking funny, and it's the moment. The second time I watched it, I thought it was funny. The first time I watched it, I was having the realization of like the tone of the movie. But the second time I watched it, when they're just like squaring up and doing like weird Animal Kingdom like dances at each other. I was like, this is hilarious. But that's when I remember it is like he's got his arms like wide, and I was like, what is that? What is that noise? Is that the suit? So I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was silly.
Sure. I mean, you're gonna get a lot of silly, man. Get used to it.
Get used to it.
Now, King Kong. So King Kong, he's portrayed in this movie by Soichi Hirose. He had appeared in minor roles in like multiple Toho films. Like he was in Godzilla as like a congressman, and he was actually one of the convicts in Raids Again.
Oh, so, that's awesome.
Yeah. And he was like very specifically interested in playing a monster in a kaiju movie.
I love those guys.
Was like, I do too. Yeah, so Tsubaraya is like, all right, you can be Kong. He would actually go on to be King Ghidorah in a couple of movies after this too. So now, yeah. So like he had this is just a funny little anecdote. He specifically received instructions from Tsubaraya to go to the zoo, study the movements of apes to like kind of capture really realistic ape-like movements, during performance. But Hirose said in interviews later, he's like, I actually never did that. I just like lied and said I went to the zoo.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Because here's the thing, the movement. I know we haven't even talked about the suit yet, but the movement looks great in their final fight on the side of that sort of like mountain cliff whatever thing. The movement looks very ape-like. He's kind of like in between all fours and two legs. Like he gets that right when he's rolling around. That stuff looks cool. But before that, I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like there's a lot of like, again, it almost looks like kind of like dancing where it's like weird sort of looseness to it that I'm like, all right, King Kong, I guess get it.
Yeah, I guess because again, they're sort of mimicking like wrestlers, right? And I think that might necessarily literally be a wrestling movement, but the idea of like the showmanship of sort of like, it is almost kind of like you're doing your like weird, intimidating little dance moves,
especially
in front of your opponent.
Especially without the context of wrestling. Like I didn't know that. I didn't know any of this was inspired by wrestling. So I'm just sort of like, what are they doing? And the only thing I could think up is like two animals just being like, I'm going to make myself look a lot bigger because I don't want to fight you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the suit, I'm assuming you probably hate it because it's
this
ugly.
thing's so fucking ugly.
I've found, because I've lived with it for long enough, I found a lot of love for it. I find it kind of charming in its ugliness in a way.
I think the things that I am put off by, obviously aside from the racism, are things that I will find charming. You know what I mean? But like as it stands, having seen it, and again, mistake maybe in this case also watching the 33 one before this, it's just so ugly. Its eyes are the worst. Yeah. Why did they just like paint eyes on him?
Well, there's two different heads too. Like there's the one head, there's like the one head for close-ups that they use that they could actually do like,
and that's very King Kong.
Yeah. I know that like, so like they had two heads for it for close-ups. So then I think that one of those allowed like the actor to actually be able to like sort of see through the mask when he kind of couldn't in other ones. So I think that was also part of it. Also, this is just so weird. The hair on the body was apparently expensive yak hair that they then hand dyed brown.
Wait,
I don't understand
hold
why.
Up. Like,
I don't understand.
Did they have a separate water suit then, or no? Or are yaks like water animals, and that's why they did it?
I think it's probably why they did it. I mean, I didn't think about that
because they fully submerged that suit.
That's probably why they used yak hair, is because then it could go in the water.
Is a yak just like a water bison or whatever that's called? Water, whatever. I don't know. I live in the Midwest. We don't have yaks.
I mean, yeah, I live on the eastern coast. We don't have yaks here either. Wait, where are yaks?
I don't know. Water buffalo. Cool. That's what I was trying to think of. Are water buffalo and yaks the same thing? Somebody let me know.
Yeah, I'm not looking that up. I've done.
But that's fascinating that it's yak fur.
Yak fur. Yeah, so fucking weird.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that part of the reason it looks kind of odd too is that like RKO specifically asked that they not make it look like the American King Kong.
Sure.
I think just to differentiate it, because they didn't know how this movie was going to turn out, right? So they wanted to keep it differentiated. So that's why it ends up looking a little bit different. Apparently, when they were designing it, they were sort of basing it on the Japanese macaque monkey instead of a gorilla.
Oh my God. That actually makes so much more sense.
It suddenly like becomes kind of clear what they're going for more than a gorilla.
Whoa.
Because I think that's the thing that's sort of uncanny about this Kong head. Yeah. Is that like you're used to like the original 33 King Kong like doesn't really look like a gorilla, but it's obviously inspired by.
But it doesn't look like anything else,
right? Like it's sort of like an abstract interpretation of a gorilla, right? And this one suddenly it's sort of like, I know it's supposed to be a gorilla, but that head's not a gorilla head. So what the hell is it? And when you realize it's like just a completely different kind of monkey, and if you look up a macaque, like the sort of ridges of the forehead and everything, and the way the cheeks are shaped and stuff. Like it makes a lot more sense.
It does. It's still ugly, but it does make a lot more sense. It at least sort of like explains how it, like why and how it ends up looking like that. It looks
like it.
And knowing that they weren't supposed to make it look like the RKO one, which, I mean, that's tough. Like, I know you said it's like an abstract interpretation of a gorilla, but I mean, you show that to anybody out of context and they're like, that's a gorilla.
Right.
How do you make a gorilla not look like the last gorilla you made, you know?
Yeah, but still be the gorilla.
Right.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, tough task.
Yeah, it was a tough task, you know. I don't think that anyone would ever go to bat and say this is like the best thing that Tsubaraya has ever made, or the best Kong.
He's too busy with the octopus.
You know? Yeah, right. But, you know, like I said, I find it charming. I have a lot of love for it, even though it's like goofy and kind of ugly, you know.
I hope I get to that point. I really hope I do.
They also like, I'm sure this is probably obvious, they put like these like long poles into his arms so that Hirose could grab them and manipulate them just to make it look like he had these long arms. But then it looks like he just like doesn't have elbows. It looks like he just has like floppy noodle arms. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, you know, he doesn't have them when they're actually doing the fighting stuff. It's just when he's walking around, which also then makes it even more uncanny because like when he's walking, his arms are like wildly different.
That's what I'm saying. That's when they look sort of like goofy and noodly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a goofy guy. What a goofy guy.
And this is the first time he's ever in color too.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, cause they've done, I don't remember how many sequels had happened since the 33 one.
I want to say, well, one thing that's really funny is that the sequel to King Kong has basically the same story as the sequel to Godzilla, where they were just like, make another one now. We don't give a shit what it is, you know? Came out literally the same calendar year. But I think, I don't know, maybe like 3? Maybe there were 3 King Kong movies at that point. Maybe even 4, because it was a lot of time. 30 years.
Sure. Yeah, 30 years. Well, first time he was in color in this movie.
Dang.
They also apparently had like a 2-foot model that they used a couple of times. They did a puppet of Kong for the facial expressions and stuff like that. And they also did have a stop motion puppet for like the one time Godzilla drop kicks him in the chest in that one moment.
Oh my God. That was so funny.
I fucking love that so much. It
caught me so
amazing.
off guard because literally nothing else in this movie is like that moment.
Yeah. It's amazing. I unironically love it to death. It's so wild. And last thing about Kong before we move on.
Sure.
The roar that he has. It's a combination of thunder with a lion's growl and an elephant's trumpet.
Hell
all mixed together.
I love that
Fucking
shit.
love it. His roar is so scary in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's genuinely scary.
I just feel like they all should be. They all should have like weird, horrifying roars you've never heard in nature before, you know?
Sure. I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
I do feel like I feel like, well, with King Kong for sure, because like for the most part, its mouth wasn't really all that articulated. Sure. But I do feel like the roar, this is such a dumb nitpicky thing, but I do feel like the roar sync for Godzilla was like almost never right. And it has like a whole ass mouth that can fully open. And I kept being like, did your mouth even move when you roared? Doesn't matter because it still sounds cool as hell. But I kept noticing it.
Yeah. That's funny. You want to talk about some character stuff?
Sure. Let's do it.
What do you think about these characters? I guess then.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's a lot of them in this movie. There's a lot of people.
There are a lot of them, and I have to admit that by the end of the movie, I probably knew 2 people's names, and one of them is not an important character. So I knew her name was Fumiko, because it's easy to remember the one woman's name.
Yeah, and it's yelled a lot.
Right, exactly. And then I knew that there was a guy named Obayashi. I couldn't tell you who he is. I just remember it was Obayashi because we had a Kobayashi who I really liked.
Which one was Obayashi?
I don't know. I just remember there was a guy. I think he worked in the or in the marketing. I think he was part of the I think he worked for Taco. So I had to look up literally everyone else's name. And it's really hard, especially when the 2 sort of like, I'm calling them the secondary guys, even though they got a lot more screen time than who I'm calling the lead guy. Because the lead guy was in a relationship with Fumiko, who is the only woman, therefore she's the lead woman. So there's like those 2 other guys who are like the cameramen. And I kind of wish that they were just the focus of that cast. You know what I mean? Like, Of the young sort of like handsome folks, I mean, I guess they're a little bit older than the couple, but the couple really, I know that they were somewhat plot relevant, but like I really feel like you could have taken some things out, could have removed some characters, and it would have been fun to have the third movie, this first sort of tonal shift or whatever, be about these 2 dudes who are like sent on this absurd sort of mission to this dangerous island, and then meet up with this like ridiculous boss of theirs. Like, I really feel like that could have carried a lot. I think you could have entirely gotten rid of the lead guy. What is it? Fujito? And just had Fumiko be a scientist instead. And then you have fewer characters to keep track of, and you don't have to worry about Fumiko being damseled as much. Just like, you know, like, I feel like once again, they're trying to like fill the exact same spots with like slight tweaks here and there. Like, we must have a romance between 2 hot leads.
I didn't really feel that way with this because I felt like it was a lot more of an ensemble than we normally have got, like a wider ensemble than normal. Because I feel like there isn't really, this is my problem with this movie is that I feel like they're actually, it was maybe like a little bit too many characters sort of spread amongst things that we were following.
Yes, I agree.
And they maybe could have consolidated.
That's why I'm trying to like pare things down and consolidate a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, I was just approaching it more of an ensemble because I didn't really feel like I feel like the 2 TV dudes, are sort of like your sort of like duo. I don't know. It's almost like you kind of have like co-leads, right? You have like Sakurai is the main like cameraman guy who does the drumming and everything. And then you have his sort of like sidekick. That's the Kinsaburo. But I mean, he's like the funny guy who's like the sidekick to Sakurai in a lot of ways. And then you have the side story that's Fujita that is sort of like, he kind of gets to do the hero stuff, but he's not really positioned narratively as the hero. He just does the heroic things and has the love interest to save in a heroic way, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. But what's strange about it is that Fujito serves kind of...
I think it's Fujita. Sorry, I'm mixing...
I'm like combining Fumiko and Fujita. But Fujita like simultaneously is like a little bit Serizawa and a little bit Ogata, right? Like if we're using sort of the original model, like he gets to be the hero with the girl, but he also gets to be the guy who like just happens to have the right idea to solve at least one of the problems.
Sure.
And so then if that guy's filling in both of those spots, like, why do we have all these other characters?
Well,
I like some of them. I don't want to get rid of some of them. Like, realistically, Kinzaburo doesn't need to be there if you do want to have a more consolidated, like, couple of leads, but I like him, so I don't want to get rid of him. But if you're going to have an ensemble, I just kind of wish that they were more distinct, or that they were more featured, or that I walked away knowing any of their names.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it, is that like it's because it's an ensemble, and I feel like most of them aren't particularly distinct enough that like you immediately, I don't know, that like nobody really gets a ton of screen time in this movie because it's such a spread ensemble, and so nobody gets particularly developed, which I think would be fine for this sort of broad comedic satire. I don't need to go in depth with these characters because that's not the movie that I'm approaching or expecting. Yeah. But then if they're going to do that, then I think that maybe you lean even a little more into the broad sense and make them very distinctly defined individual characters, because as it stands, it's like kind of three hot guys and then like their lady,
yes,
and then Taco is really like the one that stands out.
Who's like the only sort of like featured cast member, and it's not even because he's like getting more screen time. It's just because he's the one who gets to be like a big character, and they don't all need to be wacky, but like big it up a little bit, you know, like these three hot guys, like what's the difference here? What are they doing? Like what their personalities, how are they different, you know? Especially the two that are always together. Like you because they're always together, you can kind of see a difference, but not enough that you feel like there need to be two of them. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, why did? But I like the duo. I like maybe because it's just different than what we're used to, at least to this point. Well, all the things we've covered, but like to this point chronologically, it's just different to have like these two guys who are just like buds. They're just bros, you know, who work together.
One of the things that Honda had said about directing the actors that I think like. I love Honda, but I wonder if this maybe was a mistake. He said, like, I didn't ask him to play comedy. I didn't ask him to play as a comedy. He wanted them to find humor in the absurdity of it all.
Oh, buddy, there's two different things.
Like, rather than going for it as a straight comedy, it was sort of like, oh, you know, for example, it's just like a guy in the advertising section that's going for his job, you know, like the best that he could, but his way of doing it becomes a joke because it's so absurd. So it's like it's not that the character is a comedic absurd character. It's that it's just like all the choices he's making in the world he's living in is absurd, and that makes it funnier. Yeah. And I get that, but I think that like this movie, I think is when you watch Godzilla and Kong, it's very broad, and I think the characters maybe should have been broad. And Taco himself is very broad, I think, because that actor like really just full on embraces like the absurdity of that character and how you could be the type of person who's the head of a pharmaceutical department who wants to like abduct an animal or abduct a giant monster. But no one else I think ever really matches his level.
So we're like, your best understanding is that like that was maybe an actor's choice in like how he was finding the absurdity. I think so. That's incredible. Then, I mean, Taco is not a character that I normally would sort of like gravitate to. He's like obviously meant to be like over the top and a little bit annoying and very pushy. And like, he is the one who is like, he represents any hubris in this movie. Right. Yeah. But he is like electric compared to everybody else because the actor is going so hard at it. Who is the actor? Who is this guy? Do we get to see him again in another role? Because I'm kind of a fan just based on the fact that he fucking went for it.
He's Ichiro Arashima. I don't think... I'll look real quick. I don't think he's in another Godzilla movie. He's been in plenty of things. Like, he's been in lots of movies, period.
I think
actually, you know what? He's actually been in fewer movies than I expected, but but not in any more Godzilla movies.
Okay, I was going to say you could kind of sneak him in because he's sort of like a cartoonish character in this. He's got like a pretty cartoonish look. So you could have easily had him in a different role, and he doesn't. I think he's doing so much in his characterization that you wouldn't run into a situation like with Millennium. Who's the character that I fucking hated in that movie? The over the top guy. Damn it!
Oh my god, what the fuck was his name?
I haven't added Millennium. Katsugiri.
Katsugiri, that's what it was.
Like, I don't know that guy you could sneak into another movie, but I think Taco's actor you could sneak into another movie and have him play a totally different character.
Yeah, you know who did sneak into this movie?
Who? I was wondering.
Serizawa was in this movie.
Whoa, who was Serizawa?
Yeah, Akihiko Harada. He was the like sort of not the prime minister, I don't think, but one of the sort of like representatives, the dude who's like being kind of hounded by the press, and they're asking him, are you going to use nuclear weapons? Oh my
gosh.
Yeah. And then when they're actually watching the battle, he's there with like the military and stuff, and just sort of watching and sort of commenting on the battle and stuff.
Oh my God. I can't wait to see my boy.
Yeah. And I think if you watch the US cut, I think they just call him doctor. Like, I think he's supposed to be a doctor instead of a government dude, which confused me. I was like looking at him like, wait, am I confused as to who he's supposed to be playing? Like, it doesn't matter. When you know he's there, you look at him and it's just, pretend that he's wearing an eye patch and it's fucking Serizawa.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see him. It was just fun to see him in this movie.
That's
And
cool.
he's only in a few scenes and he doesn't really like do much, but it's a neat little like cameo.
For sure. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, just fun fact, not that she gets to do much more than fall and scream, but Fumiko is played by Miyahama, and she is actually a future Bond girl. She plays the female lead in You Only Live Twice not long after.
Does she have a fun Bond girl name?
She is Kissy Suzuki.
Oh my God. Honestly, could have been so much worse. I'm kind of into it.
Oh, could have been a lot worse than that.
Kissy Suzuki. Wow. Well, I bet you I like her a lot more in that one. I mean, this is no fault of the actress. She does perfectly fine. It's just she's really truly only there to like be in danger.
It's wild how like this one lady like just she like interacts with both Godzilla and Kong and almost is killed by both of them, and both in situations where she's just like randomly falling down or randomly getting picked up.
Now, imagine if she were like a more consequential, relevant character, like maybe her boyfriend was, and like that mattered, that she had experienced both attacks. Like there's a way that you could have woven that in as like the person who is the most kaiju experienced in the room happens to be her,
That's so true. Yeah. Like she actually got to be up close with like both of these dudes, and it's sort of like, I figured out like that Godzilla's weakness is electricity and Kong it absorbs electricity.
I saw this. This happened. I noticed this. I mean, like it wouldn't be the same thing as Emiko, but one of the things I loved about Emiko in the original movie is that like she was the connection between all the pieces that needed to fit together. You know what I mean? And Fumiko is in all the right places to be the thing that connects all the pieces, but they just don't let her do that.
Do anything. Yeah, she's literally like at home and she's like, I think my boyfriend might be dead, but maybe not. So I'm going to go find him. Oh no, Godzilla. Well, now we're going to try to leave. Oh no, King Kong. Like she's just going places and running into monsters with not really any intention. Like
no. There's a version of this movie where she just is the lead and it's not an ensemble at all. And she just like through all these sort of weird circumstances ends up being there. And then we kind of see through her perspective, but no, not really. I was so confused when they like missed each other because it felt like it should have been so much more a significant moment, but it really just is like, oh, I thought he was dead, so I'm gonna go there, and he's not dead, but he missed me because I'm gone. Like it's just like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it is like weirdly like it really is truly just to get her into a position where you can have a character that another character cares about in the path of Godzilla. Like that's literally the only reason that entire plot point happens. Because there's no other reason the like fake out of maybe he died thing happens at all. Like it's just to get her tripping and falling in that little tiny creek.
I wonder, and I know you know the answer to this, but I wonder like how many movies into the series do we get before there is a compulsion to have some sort of romantic couple? You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if it was literally the next movie. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there were the compulsory like hot couple in like every movie for like 12 movies, whether they're actually consequential or not.
Yeah. I mean, that's an American action movie thing too.
Sure. These ones are just maybe the least compelling ones we've seen, I think.
Oh my God, in this movie, yeah. Well, because like again, the characters like don't really matter in this movie, like not.
They try so hard to make them matter because he's like the textile guy, right?
Yes, the guy he was like the super strong floss that he makes. It's so the plot, the elements of this movie are so funny. Like it's you've got super strong like wire floss stuff. Like I just love how thin it is, and it clearly is because it's sort of like that's the prop that is what we have on set that we literally use to string up spaceships and monsters. So why not just visualize that and just use it? And now we don't have to like try to hide it. You have super strong floss. You have big old balloons. You have electricity that gives Kong superpowers for some reason. You have berry juice that gets Kong drunk and sleepy. And
bombs made from that same berry juice, like gas bombs made from the berry juice that they just so happen to have from a different expedition to that island.
Oh my God. And honestly, I think it's actually really genius that they just like at the beginning of the movie just established that Sakurai, despite being a cameraman, is also a good drummer, which you think is sort of like, that's a weird character beat. And it's so honestly, they can establish that he can drum later on in the climax. And I'm like, you know what?
Kind of genius.
Actually, that's like A+ screenwriting there, actually. That is true play and payoff. Because I never would have expected the random, like the random, like we don't even really see him drumming in the beginning. It's just sort of like, why are you doing this? You're not normally a drummer. It's like, I'm filling in because because I can play drums.
Right.
And then guess what he does at the end of the movie? Plays drums and it puts Kong to sleep.
It's not even heavy-handed. So he's like annoyed he had to fill in. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing.
Yeah. It's actually like, that's like incredible screenwriting because I never expected that to be an important piece of the plot.
Chekhov's drum set.
Chekhov's drum set.
So good.
But yeah, so the bizarre just elements of this movie are so funny to me. Like that's not even a criticism. It's just like,
no, that's the fun stuff. That's like
the
good silliness that I like. And I'm like excited for the tonal shift, you know? Cause it's just like these absurd parts that all make sense together. But like, like how did you come to that part or that piece of the puzzle? I don't know, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
The traps and the devices, right? You mentioned the like electrocuting King Kong. We haven't mentioned the pitfall yet. That is so funny to me that they try to like drop Godzilla into this like pit where they're, I guess, gonna like, are they gonna blow him up in there? Are they gonna gas him in there?
I think they were trying to bury him, maybe.
Set him on. Oh, okay. But then he just sort of like pops up, which is so funny to me, where it's just like his head rises from the thing. I'm like, did you not dig it deeply enough? Like he just seems to have stood up.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, I'm right here.
So
what's going on?
Such a funny moment. Parallels the like King Kong also not getting blown up, or you know, not getting blown up, and then just like head popping up from the water. Like there's some really funny like monster moments in this.
Yeah. Well, I think they really do embrace the idea of like, God, these humans are so fucking dumb and cannot actually, like, they need the monsters to fight and kill each other because they cannot handle this.
Right. So they need the humans to be completely unsuccessful at like actually tackling the problem.
But I think it's funny because they shouldn't be successful because it's like, you're fucking causing all these problems, y'all. Like, I think I fucking love, like, they're dragging Kong on this raft from this island to bring him to Japan, and then are like shocked and surprised when he starts waking up and are immediately like, well, I guess we got to blow him up now. And I'm like, what did you think did you think he was never going to wake up? You're like, idiots. Like, what?
I mean, it's a perfect Kong story. You know what I mean? They didn't think far enough ahead. They underestimated the strength. It's.
I don't mean that as a criticism.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I think that's like it's part of the satire. It's just like these fucking dumbass corporate executives have this brilliant idea that they don't think through the implementation of it at all.
Yeah, because it's all hurried. None of it's studied. It's not. None of it's good. Like none of these are good ideas. Like at all.
Yeah,
it's it's just so absurd. The more you think about it, the more absurd it gets. I also wish that last episode I had just stopped at maybe they get King Kong to stop Godzilla. Like maybe that's how they intersect. It's not where I landed, and I wish I had just stopped talking because I would have been so close to correct.
Yeah, you would have been pretty close. I mean,
it's not exact, but like because there's the whole
they also wanted to make it for a
money
commercial,
making, ridiculous aspect, but I would have been so close.
Yeah. I mean, it's the perfect story, right? Because like King Kong is especially, at this point, Godzilla's only ever been a villain. King Kong is like I think has historically been portrayed more overtly sympathetic than Godzilla. We love the Godzilla in the first movie, but he is meant to be more of a horror villain. King Kong, I think, is more immediately kind of like, oh, we feel bad for this creature who was sort of dragged, like so clearly just dragged into this terrible situation.
Yeah.
So I think that it makes sense to position Kong in this movie as essentially like the good guy. Like it is like he's the face and Godzilla's the heel in this movie is how it's portrayed, which is why, you know, Kong obviously wins at the end of the movie.
Which is wild. I wouldn't have known what to predict. I honestly wouldn't have known like how does this turn out? But it kind of makes sense, right? Like they have reverence for King Kong. They paid a butt ton of money for King Kong. They're obviously going to like, you know, respect particular wishes about King Kong, you know, from the original creators or the owners of it. So it actually makes sense when you think about it, but I just I'm like kind of surprised.
Yeah. There's like this was for a long time before people could like easily, you know, import and fact check stuff, like this long-standing urban legend of like, well, did you know that, you know, in the US Kong wins, but in Japan their original cut Godzilla wins because they wanted to have like the monsters of their respective country winning. Like, and people just like believe that for the longest time.
What's so funny about that is like King Kong is American by production, not by like narrative. Like, do you know what I mean?
Actually, a really interesting point. Because I didn't never thought about
because
that.
one of the things about King Kong is that he's like being ripped out of where he's from.
Right.
Like he's not from the he's not from New York. He's like completely out of his element in New York. So it's like, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like as far as like the production goes, and actually, like you said, the sort of meta of it all aligns and makes perfect sense that this would be viewed as like America's monster versus Japan's monster and the ultimate showdown. But like, if you're just looking at the sort of King Kong side of things, it doesn't really make sense that he represents America.
That's such a good point.
He represents a victim of America.
A victim of America. It's just two victims of America killing each other.
Truly.
Basically is what this ultimately is.
Yeah.
Like actually, like legitimately. Yeah. That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh, wow.
One thing we haven't even mentioned, we've talked about Godzilla. We've talked about how they end up sort of interacting, King Kong and Godzilla, but we haven't even addressed the fact that this Godzilla is the frozen Godzilla directly from the end of the last movie. And it's explicit. Like they all are like, oh, I thought Godzilla was dead. And I said, you're all idiots for not checking. And I was right. Not that was like deep prediction, but like, I just thought it was cool. I was like, oh, check it out.
Yeah. You were 1000% right. It did weird. It is weird that it took Godzilla like 7 years to break out of that ice. I don't really understand that part. They
do address it. It's because the oceans are like warming for some reason. I don't know if it's supposed to be climate change or if there's an external factor or what, but like it's only because the sea was like warming up.
See, I thought my reading of that was that the sea was warming up because it was Godzilla slowly breaking out of the ice.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I guess it could go either way.
Yeah. It is just funny because it's sort of like he wasn't under that much ice in Raise Again. It would take him years to break out.
Like, but maybe he just
maybe he just went to bed.
Yeah, he wanted like, a nap.
I'm annoyed. I'm gonna sleep for a few years. Yeah. And then I'll wake up and then I'll break out.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Why would I want to deal with these humans? Let them think I'm dead.
Yeah. I think that whole sequence looked really good too. Like the actual look of like the icebergs and the glaciers in the water and then the sub. Above and underwater all looked really, really good.
Yeah, the sub looked incredible.
Yeah, I was very
surprised at how much English was in this movie as a result of the sub being an American sub. It was like a weird like I obviously understood everything they were saying, but it like took me a second to be like, wait a second, I understand what they're saying, but not because I'm reading the screen. A lot of English at the beginning of this movie, but yeah,
the dude with like the deep like cowboy southern accent too. So funny. And so obviously dubbed over.
Why does this was in 84? It was like this too. Like just like the most ridiculous like I don't know. I mean, it's because it's dubbed and it's probably supposed to be dubbed to be as clear as possible, you know. But yeah, it looked really good. I liked the iceberg stuff. I know I was like not a fan of the raids, like how raids kind of ended up looking with its ice and snow and stuff, but this looked great.
It does, yeah. What else?
I mean, we haven't talked a ton about their fight.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh yeah, there's plenty of fun stuff. I mean, there's so many gifts that just come from this fight. Like there's so many iconic little like weird little motions that they do, or you know, just individual like ways that they interact and everything that are just like so like iconic, often in its absurdity, really,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so much more rock throwing than I would have thought, which
there's a lot of rock throwing.
is very funny in the climactic fight. In their sort of like sizing up, squaring up thing, I was like, what are we doing? One of you move. Because in the first fight, they're just like figuring each other out, and then King Kong gets scared off because Godzilla fucking has atomic breath.
Yeah, I love the way that Kong like is like so confused and looking up down at himself and like wiping himself off. Like, I don't think I like this. I'm gonna peace out, yo. Yeah. And like, it's so funny.
Is that where Kong does the weird like stop blink thing? Like, what just happened?
I think, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of times,
or maybe it was when he blew up the helicopter.
Yeah. But yes, I love that. It's so funny.
Like, what is happening? But yeah, so much more rock throwing. I thought it was really funny, especially in the climactic fight, because it ends up being like, I don't know. There's moments for both of them where like they think they're done. They think they've like finished the fight and start walking away, and then someone throws a fucking rock, and they're like, "What the fuck did you just throw at me?" Like, it's so funny. It really is like wrestlers thinking that they've won, getting up and then having somebody hit them with a chair in the back.
No, it totally is. Yeah. I love the points when like they throw rocks and like don't really interact. Like Godzilla will get hit by a rock in the face and just kind of stands there.
Yeah. And
then it takes a second. It's like, oh wait, shit, that just happened. Like it's kind of funny. I mean, and you can read into it that it's like, oh, you know, they're so powerful that it's like, it just hits you and you're not even really responding to it. You know, it's just funny because they're like obviously dudes in rubber suits, so you can like kind of see that. And I think kind of the fun, honestly, like the fun of the Godzilla Kong fight is like, you can watch it as these like two monsters like wailing at each other. I think it is also fun just to envision it as dudes in suits, and it's like equally as fun. You know what I mean? Because it's like the idea of watching them in the movie, and also the idea of like, these is two dudes in these suits fighting each other, like wrestling each other. And that is so fucking funny and silly to watch them doing these wrestling moves on each other.
Yeah.
Cause they are doing like a lot of actual moves, like on each other.
Tumbling going on.
Yeah. Like they are being very, I mean, they are being very like active and stuff like that. Like they're doing genuine stunt work, and like it's silly when they're in the monster suits. And, you know, I know you commented on like Godzilla's suit is like much more obviously a suit in this movie than the first two.
Yeah. But it doesn't look as bad in the actual final fight. It only really looks bad when they're sizing each other up and not making contact.
Yeah. Like there's points, like both of them, I think had been trained in martial arts in some way. Like they're stuntmen. So of course they know how to like use their body and everything. So like there's one point when like Kong lifts Godzilla over his head. Like he is doing that. Like, he is doing that with Nakajima in the suit. And there's another one where he like, you know, is swinging Godzilla through the air. I think Nakajima was in the suit even during that. Like that wasn't like a fake thing. Like he was legit swinging this dude around by the tail of his suit. Like it's so fucking cool. And I think a lot of their choreography was just them figuring out on their own because they both know martial arts.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously like very much appreciate all the work that goes into it, and like and I'm just like amazed at what they're able to pull off. But I gotta say, like, I never thought about the guys in the suits watching this. I was like fully like in on these two monsters.
That's
like
awesome.
Being sort of like their fight feels so much like they are wasting their time on each other. Like, can you stop?
Ooh.
Can I get on with this? You know, like there are points where they kind of seem annoyed with each other.
Yeah.
And like just wish the other one would kind of leave them alone. I mean, they're throwing rocks
hilarious
at each other. They're doing dumb, annoying shit to each other before they actually start throwing each other around. And I feel like the attitude is like just comes through on the screen in such a funny way.
Yeah, it's like they're not really that serious about their own match that everyone else is like watching and paying attention to. Like,
there's like no aggression. There's like annoyance. You know what I mean? Like there's no like these don't seem like sworn enemies. These don't seem like guys who are worried the other guy's gonna kill them. It's just sort of like, how do I win and get out of here? Like it's so
well, I think
funny.
that's what makes it feel. I think that's the wrestling aspect, I think, is so part and parcel of that, right? Because like when you're watching wrestling, it's a performance. When you're watching professional wrestling, you know that it's a performance, right? You're not out to actually literally kill each other. And I think that comes through here because it's like, there are other Godzilla movies where the plot is about Godzilla or someone stopping a world-ending monster or whatever the fuck. Like, it is meant to be life or death. And like, even if it's silly, it's still like technically played seriously.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's sort of like, it's even within the context of the movie, you 100% buy in that these are giant, like, you know, giant colossal kaiju monsters fighting each other. They're not fighting for their lives. They're not fighting for like true dominance. They're fighting because they're in each other's way and frustrated with each other. They're not even really trying to actually murder each other, you know?
King Kong fucking hides behind a rock to punk Godzilla. Like, it's so unserious. Really funny, yeah. Like, in a good way.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Honestly, and we kind of mentioned this, the only thing that's really missing is just sort of like that sense of destruction and danger. But like, I don't even know if it would have felt right in this particular fight.
Yeah.
Like, it would have felt right
weird.
For what Honda wanted to do, like the story he wanted to tell. But at the point where they're having this type of fight, you know, we get a couple things. Like, we get that there's like sort of pardon my ignorance, but like sort of this sort of like temple-y looking building. I have no idea what it is or what purpose it serves, but like that was destroyed. And so like you get at least a little bit of destruction here and there.
But there are like, there's a thread of this movie of the irony of, you know, people being worried about like their, you know, the ratings or getting the publicity, or like, you know, newspapers are, you know, capitalizing on Godzilla, so we need to have a monster to capitalize on it, and not worrying about those respective monsters destroying everything in their wake. And that thread is there, and that thread is never paid off. Like, that's I think that's like the core, unfortunately, the core flaw of this movie that I think, you know, we already talked to death about, that it's just because of the, you know, competing forces between Honda's artistic vision and what Toho wanted. And that thread just is never picked up on. It's sort of like, oh, they don't realize that the monsters are going to wreak havoc and kill everyone. Well, they don't. It's actually fine. They have their big battle where there's no one around and then leave, and it doesn't matter.
It's such an odd like point to get to from Godzilla raids again, where I feel like the big thing that I'm left with is just like these everyday people who want nothing to do with these monsters and can't help being in the middle of everything. This is like the complete opposite. They're all like, I want more monsters and we don't give a shit. Like,
literally so a child is like, I want to see Godzilla. Like, Godzilla. It's like Godzilla. It's like they know inherently that Godzilla is on his way back to Japan and on his way to Tokyo specifically,
which is literally supposed to be the horror. That's supposed to be the tension of
Godzilla. And everyone's
Godzilla.
like, well, now Godzilla's on magazines. We got Godzilla Yaki in restaurants. There's that Godzilla movie that's coming out. Like, everyone's excited to see our guy. Like, it's our new mascot. Like, it's
so absurd.
It's so absurd, which I love it. And that's part of the satire, obviously. It's just, again, you know, once Godzilla and Kong show up, it's sort of like, well, the satire's gone because we are literally just watching the movie that we all wanted to see, which was Godzilla and Kong fighting each other, you know?
Sure. I was surprised that, I mean, we talked about King Kong winning, but I was surprised that it basically, I'm not surprised that it ends in such a way that there isn't like a, you know, nail in any coffin, but I was surprised that it does end with them just sort of like rolling into the water and going separate ways, and no one really getting any answers, right? Like, King Kong just sort of like swims off into the distance, and they're like, all right, well, he probably wants to go home. We did give him kind of a hard time here. And then Godzilla's just like under the water. Bones Godzilla?
Kong did electrocute him, I guess. Maybe electrocuted him to bones.
What the fuck, dude? We didn't even talk about that. Like, I know we talked about like the electrical wires and stuff, but the actual, like, I guess he doesn't wield it like a superpower necessarily, but it's kind of what it is. It's like his own sort of like shock power that's kind of like incidental.
I think it's an artifact of the original, like, Frankenstein idea. Like, so probably, you know, the Frankenstein's monster would have gotten, you know, imbued with electricity or whatever, and that just got transplanted onto Kong, because, like, there isn't, like, you know, because technically Godzilla is more powerful than Kong. How is he going to defeat Godzilla? He doesn't have atomic breath or whatever. So you give him electro power. He's an electro Kong now.
Honestly, shocked it happened this early. That seems like such a modern thing to do, to be like, all right, give whatever, who cares? Give King Kong like electric fists. Sure, go for it. Like, I don't know. I don't know why it feels modern. Maybe because it just is so much more absurd than the other two movies that we've watched from this era.
It's a big sci-fi jump.
Yeah.
With that. Yeah, for sure.
But I could totally see it being
sense.
a Frankenstein thing because like he's like Godzilla has buried him and thinks he's dead, and he gets struck by lightning and literally like sits up and is like, ha ha, like it's right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like really bizarre and out of nowhere, but like I love it because it's like sure whatever. Like it feels very tokusatsu in the more like TV tokusatsu kind of way.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes things don't have to make sense as long as they're cool. And Electro Kong, cool as fuck, man.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and I can't not mention like the tree bit of Kong like literally shoving a tree in Godzilla's mouth, which if you look at our podcast cover art, I did have a guest artist do it this time. This was Andy Vanderbilt did the art for this. You can find him at AV Artwork on Twitter and AV_artwork on Twitch. I'll plug all of his stuff in the show notes so you can find him. Definitely follow him for his really super cool artwork. There's a lot of really cool chonky kaiju art that I love a lot.
So awesome.
Thanks for doing that art. Andy, that fucking rules. I didn't ask for a particular moment, but
if you had to pick one, though,
moment. If I had to pick one, you got to have the fucking tree, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many like fun, just like weird little moments in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had, the US cut. I know you didn't watch it.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it.
I mean, it's worse. I mean, they kind of actually strip a lot of this. They can't inherently strip all the satire out of it because it's so obviously part of the plot, but they don't make it as broad and overt, right? Like it is still the plot is the same in that it's still a TV station trying to take Kong or whatever, but like they do try to like minimize a lot of the jokes and try to just like cut as much as they can out of it. And they do less. They cut out a lot of the actual like referencing, people being excited about Godzilla being on magazines or whatever. It's more like we want to, and they reorder a lot of the scenes too. So it's like the Kong thing, the Godzilla kind of just shows up very early in the movie. And as that's happening, bringing Kong is almost kind of a response to Godzilla being there, rather than these things sort of happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
But the other big thing, oh boy, there are things that there are new scenes that are filmed for this movie. That are basically sort of like basically meant to be sort of exposition. It's like this news broadcast from the United Nations, which I don't think is a thing that has ever happened in the history of the world. I don't know. It's basically like this sort of weird pseudo news broadcast. That's just like
is the
these
whole
Americans...
movie meant to be like a broadcast? Or they just like sort of like interrupt the story?
They interrupt the story
Gotcha.
to explain things. And they also take their time because they cut a lot of scenes out of character stuff because they also want to get rid of some of the satirical tone. And then instead of having characters explain things,
giving us
they
less of these characters.
Right. Seriously, like literally, yes.
Wow.
And just sort of cut to the end of these like reporters narrating what's happening, very seriously talking about monsters. Like the whole tone of the movie, it's like, I think it makes it worse in that it makes it feel like the humor is not intentional at certain points. Like, how the Japanese movie opens with sort of like that sort of weird clay earth. Yeah. And then it turns out that it's like, oh no, that's just from the TV show
that was so
in
funny.
The universe. It's so few, but in the US movie, that's like really truly meant to be Earth. And it opens with like a Hamlet quote that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
It's so like they try to make it like really serious or whatever, and it's sort of like, but the movie's funny though.
Yeah, but not serious in the way that like it could have been by Ishirō Honda's like vision.
Because they still have the monsters fighting in the same way. Like that doesn't
That's
change.
so funny. They take out both of my favorite separate versions of the movie. It sounds like they sort of like took out or attempted to take out.
Yeah. It's just sort of, it just becomes very like middle of the road, Hollywood B movie, which it's still really fun. Like I still again, that was like the version that I had seen for the longest time and I still had a blast with it. It's just, but then you get the Japanese version and like, oh, the satire is like much more apparent and more, more hammered in, but also like these UN scenes are so fucking funny because there's like, they explain all about the berries. There's a point when they explain that like Godzilla's brain is the size of a marble, but Kong has like a thinking man's brain. And I'm like, why are you like brain shaming Godzilla right now? You remember the Raise Again, like the continuity of Godzilla is all fucked because they made Godzilla gigantus. So in this movie, like they call him Godzilla, but they're just sort of like, he's just some, ancient reptile. They say reptile. From the Mesozoic era who was trapped in ice and breaks out. So they kind of like, eliminate the continuity because the continuity already didn't exist.
Easy enough.
And they just call him Godzilla. Like whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. But they have the scientist in there that's like explaining what dinosaurs are. And he's using a children's book to explain it. And it's like Godzilla is a combination of a T-Rex and a Stegosaurus. And I'm like, first of all, why is there a scientist with a children's book explaining how Godzilla is a combination of two dinosaurs to me right now? It almost like it overly complicates it because you just tell people it's fucking Godzilla.
Yeah.
And he's some radioactive dinosaur. And that's all you need, especially in 1962. Like you don't need anything more than that.
But also, why did it kind of just blow my mind that you could just call him a mix between a T-Rex and a Stegosaurus, and it makes perfect sense.
It kind of makes sense. Yeah, you can definitely see that. Yeah, sure, it works.
I've literally never thought of Godzilla that way, but like, it's right there.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but I mean, the UN scenes they're boring, but like they're also hilarious because they're so stupid.
Sure.
Like they're so like they try to be so serious.
Yeah.
But then it's literally like a scientist with a children's book saying like reptile and Godzilla is a dinosaur and like. Okay, I guess you're an authority on the matter.
Yeah, I almost wonder if, like, not necessarily that I would think that the American version's like a better movie, but I do wonder if I would have gotten it more quickly than I got this one as like a whole package. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Because it sounds like it was maybe like goofy, maybe not intentionally so, but like goofy right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, you watch it, it's just sort of like, this is so fucking, they're trying to be serious, but like, it's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
And this movie, I wouldn't say that it's dumb because they are being very intentional about what they're doing, whether that's the satire or the more comedic stuff.
Yeah.
So the American movie, it is just sort of like laughing at an old movie, like not really knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of other differences in like the edits and the dubbing and stuff like that. But those are sort of like the main things, and the music being totally different too. Which is kind of tragic, really.
Yeah.
Because the score of this movie is really good. So, yeah. Anything else about King Kong versus Godzilla? General feelings?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that my feelings have like super duper changed necessarily. Like, I still don't know that this movie's gonna, I mean, I haven't seen so many Godzilla movies, so this is a hard thing to say. I don't know that this is necessarily gonna like rank very highly as one of my favorites, just because I feel like there's always gonna be that sort of like weird discord between sort of the two different versions of this movie that I think could have been more successful had they been separate from each other. Plus, like, I can't lie, like, it's really hard to get past everything on Faroe Island for me. There was like nothing on Faroe Island that I enjoyed. So it's still a little mixed for me, but the fun stuff is really fun. If it were just the fun stuff,
Sure.
And you could excise some of the the bad stuff, I would like it a lot more.
I think that's fair. I still really like this movie a lot. I mean,
I get it.
In spite of the racism, I think I still think it's kind of fun as shit.
Yeah.
But again, I also have more experience with all the other movies, and I do think that it's like I would be curious after you've seen a lot more Showa era movies, especially, and have sort of, I think, maybe probably got more used to the vibe of it all and seen more examples of what they do with this tone, if you would feel differently returning to this movie after that.
Potentially. I mean, I'm obviously open-minded about it. My guess would be that I'm kind of like, if not necessarily more into the movies after, more immediately get the movies after. Because like I said, the door's open, right? Like, they can just make sort of a kind of movie that goes whole hog on this tone if they want to. And there's nothing to really like adjust to at that point.
Yeah.
At least that's sort of the prediction. I have no idea where it's going to go or how I'm going to feel.
Yeah. I feel like ultimately this movie is like the way the Child's Play franchise went, where the first three are horror movies, and then the fourth movie, Bride of Chucky, is like, many years after the previous one and is suddenly a dark comedy. And it ends up breathing such new life into that franchise that like couldn't sustain the horror of it for much longer, and suddenly it's sort of like, yeah, we can be a dark comedy franchise, and it actually fucking works, and it's better. And they do pivot back into horror eventually too. You know, I think that's kind of what this movie is for Godzilla, where it's like playing around and sort of like, what if we just pivot? You know what? This kind of works in certain ways and people seem to like it, so we'll do this. And suddenly Godzilla is a giant franchise. And there's more opportunities to play both in the light and the dark as it goes along, you know, for 70 years after that.
Yeah, for sure.
So next up, we got Mothra March happening.
Woo!
So we're going to have 2 episodes next month. So we're going to March 13th. We've got a special episode that's just about the solo Mothra movie from 1961. We'll have a special guest with us.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be really hella fun. And then a couple weeks after that, on March 27th, we're going to have Mothra versus Godzilla from 1964. So some questions for you, some predictions for you. For Mothra versus Godzilla, that's the movie that comes, you know, directly after this one. Do you think that that movie will acknowledge the events of this movie at all?
I mean, I think so, because I think the way they end this, it just feels like they're ready to keep making more Godzilla movies. Like, Godzilla just falls into the water. Once again, no one checks. So there's no reason not to acknowledge it. I think it would actually be kind of weird not to acknowledge it, if only because, like, it wouldn't change anything to acknowledge the events of this. Although it's King Kong. They probably can't actually acknowledge King Kong over and over and over again. So it could be a continuation, but I don't think they're ever going to mention King Kong.
Cool.
Maybe they'll mention something vaguely, but no, I don't think they're going to mention these events specifically.
Godzilla's around and fighting a creature.
Another battle. More monsters. Although it's Mothra, and I don't really know anything about Mothra, but something about just calling it like another monster seems disrespectful.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, I'm excited for you to meet Mothra. That's going to be great. Do you think any of these characters are going to appear ever again in any other Godzilla movie?
I can't
human characters
imagine. I mean, the only person that I think you would not that you would bring back, but like personality wise and presence wise, the only person you would bring back is Tako. But Tako is so specific to the events of this movie, it would be weird to bring him back. So no, I don't think so.
That makes sense. Cool. Now, I'm going a little bit backwards. Sure. Obviously, Mothra vs. Godzilla is the next movie after this. But between this and Mothra vs. Godzilla, we are doing the solo Mothra movie, which I have not seen. Ooh. This is going to be my first time watching it. And as of this recording, I haven't watched it yet.
Good thing
I'm
we
really
have a
excited
guest
to watch it. Yes. Very excited to record it and to watch it. So I don't know the answers to these questions either.
Let's ponder together.
Yeah. I mean, I know more than you do, because just from generally, but I actually don't really know the exact answer to these questions, really. Do you think any kaiju other than Mothra appear in Mothra's first solo movie?
I have no fucking clue, because like, I truly don't know anything about Mothra other than like people love Mothra inside and outside of the universe, I think. So like, I don't know what that means for a movie where Mothra is like the sole character,
the title character.
Like, I can understand if my only understanding of Mothra is that like Mothra is good or beloved or whatever, like inside a universe, I can see a world where Godzilla and Mothra can be in conflict, because all you really have to do is make Godzilla a more destructive force, or make Godzilla a little bit more villainous for that one, or in some way more antagonistic. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what. I don't have enough of a concept of Mothra to know, like, what's she up to? Like just on her own. So I'm not. Am I getting that right? Mothra pronouns. Yeah. Okay. So like that's how little I know, right? So I guess what I should predict is that no, there's no other monsters, and that in some way Mothra is like a problem, but not necessarily a malevolent force.
Sure. I would agree with you. I think that's, I actually genuinely don't know if there's any other kaiju other than Mothra, but I do know that I think it's one of those things where it's a weird first appearance compared to future movies where she's like, you know, more of like a good, good on the good spectrum. I think maybe I think she is like a monster that has to be dealt with, but I don't know in what way. I don't think that she's going to be like a villain in this movie
right.
or whatever in the way that some other kaiju
like
are.
I wonder if it's more of a classic sci-fi problem where it's just sort of like, oh shit, this thing happened and we got to save people, but like how do we do that?
Yeah I mean, my next question is just gonna be any general guesses to like the plot or like vibe of Mothra, but I don't know how to even answer that. I know that it'll be fantasy bent in some way because Mothra is always very fantasy bent. Okay. And that's I know fun. That Ishiro Honda directed Mothra. So I think that it will be smart and good. And I know that Mothra is supposed to be a good movie. So I'm excited about it. I just don't really know what themes are really going to be dealt with in it.
Cool.
So I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, me too. I'm stoked. Stoked to finally meet Mothra.
Hell yeah. You're going to love Mothra. Mothra fucking is amazing.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks y'all for joining us and joining us on the epic battle between King Kong and Godzilla. If you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about media like this, you can check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. You can follow it on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and on Instagram at GlitterjawPods. Always tons of great stuff coming out. There's like a Distant Echoes episode that I am on that I think will have just come out this week, probably like the day or two before this episode drops, and I'm on about the Clone Wars 2D episodes. Mixed Reviews just recently did their best of 2023 episode. And they were on Are You My Mother for an episode about John Waters' Serial Mom.
Incredible.
Fucking great. I mean, that's a great movie, and what great guest to have on to talk John Waters and Kathleen Turner. It's a really good conversation. Definitely check those out. But for Doug, where can we find you and everything you're working on? You can find me all over the place at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. And you can listen to me on one of those Glitterjaw shows called Novel Gaming, where my co-host Katie and I talk about all the books, video games, and sometimes other media we have been consuming lately. A lot of times those look like a book club or a video game club, but just so you know, even though an episode is dedicated to a book or a game, we always do some catching up about other media before that. So never be turned off by an episode because you haven't read the book or something like that. Also, we may have dabbled in some streaming recently, depending on when you're listening to this. So check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/Ikkybooley to see what Novel Gaming got up to. Oh, that rules. Yeah, what about you, Derek? You can find me most active on Twitter at Derek B. Gale. I'm on other platforms either under that name or Dare Bear or Mr. Dare Bear. I have another podcast with Glitterjaw called Gimmicks, where my co-host David and I look at the high concept, experimental, structure-breaking, gimmicky episodes of TV. I also have another podcast to do with Doug called Walloping Web Snappers, where we look at every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. And I also have a new podcast called Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which is a Simpsons gaming podcast where my co-host Tommy and I are going through every Simpsons tie-in video game ever made chronologically. And if you're into tokusatsu like Godzilla, I have a new episode of our Tokusatsu Thursdays coming up this coming Thursday, as of this episode drop on the 15th. That is a show I do with my friend Chris on his Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/sci-fi explosion. And it's just a whole bunch of random tokusatsu episodes along with toku themed commercials and clips. It's a combination of stuff you are probably familiar with stuff you are probably not familiar with unless you're like a hardcore toku nerd. We have some really cool, I'm really excited about the one that's coming up this week because we have some really cool weird finds and like some of my favorite commercials that we've ever found that are going to be streaming there. So definitely check that out. Also join our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. That's of course the Patreon for our Spider-Man show, but we do, that is what supports everything that Doug and I do together. And we do have some Godzilla related bonus things coming out. I know we have one episode about that we're going to be doing. That's Godzilla Mad Libs coming out later this month. I'm excited to see how that goes. It's exactly what it sounds like. We haven't recorded it yet, so I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm sure it will be fun. How can you go wrong with Mad Libs that are Godzilla themed? Because that's what we're going to be doing. So check out our Patreon for as little as $1 a month to have access to those bonus episodes. Walloping Web Snappers also has a Discord, and we do have a Screonk channel for that. So a link to that's in the show notes. You can email us any questions or corrections at scryonkpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, since we're a monthly podcast, it's very helpful to rate, review, and subscribe to us on any podcast platform you use. And of course, next week we are beginning Mothra March. Woo! I'm so excited because we're starting with the Queen's very first appearance in 1961's Mothra.
Yes. See you then.